What if the greatest myth in the galaxy wasn't a myth at all? What if the long-lost humans thought to be extinct for centuries had never left, but were silently watching, waiting for the right moment to return? Today, that moment has come. Their silence is broken, and the galaxy will never be the same. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show some love with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now, let's jump into the story. Captain Leora Vale had always trusted the silence of deep space. It was a calm, endless ocean that asked no questions and demanded no answers. Her ship, the Lumera Dawn, drifted quietly near the edge of known space, far from trade routes and bustling colonies. This area was labeled unimportant on most star charts, a forgotten corner of the galaxy where the stars whispered old, worn-out stories. But today, the silence broke. Leora stood on the observation deck staring at the holographic screen that showed a strange signal echoing from a nearby system. It had appeared out of nowhere. No distress call, no known origin, just a repeating pulse in a language no one had heard in generations. The computer labeled it unclassified, which didn't sit right with her. Unclassified usually meant ancient, and ancient meant dangerous. Where's it coming from? She asked, turning to her navigation officer, a quiet man named Tenor. He frowned at the readings. About 3 light hours out, near the remains of an old asteroid colony, long dead, no known traffic in the area. Leora narrowed her eyes. Then what's sending the signal? Tenor looked up slowly. We don't know, Captain. She gave a short nod, then turned back to the window. Stars blinked beyond the glass, cold and distant. Something about this didn't feel right. It wasn't just the signal. It was the timing. The pulse felt deliberate, like someone was knocking on a door no one remembered locking. By the time they reached the coordinates, the pulse had grown stronger. It wasn't just sound or code anymore. It was rhythm. A beat, almost like a heartbeat. The crew grew quiet. Even the ship's artificial intelligence lowered its voice when responding to commands, as if it, too, felt the weight of something watching. The object came into view slowly. At first, it looked like another piece of space debris, dark and still. But as the Lumera Dawn approached, its shape became clearer, a structure, massive, floating. Not just old, but ancient. Its hull was blackened, scorched by time and space. No lights, no movement. Just stillness. But it wasn't abandoned. Not completely. Leora stepped closer to the main display. Enlarge the forward feed. The image zoomed in. What they saw silenced the room completely. On the side of the massive structure, barely visible through layers of dust and damage, was a symbol. A faded mark, worn but unmistakable. The old insignia of Earth's human fleet. Leora's breath caught. Her heart skipped a beat. That can't be right. Tenor spoke, almost whispering. Captain, that marking hasn't been seen in over 1,000 years. She stepped back. The room felt colder now. Humans had vanished from the galaxy long ago. They were a curious part of history, known for fierce independence, brilliant innovation, and sudden, total disappearance. Some claimed they had been destroyed in a war too great to be remembered. Others said they had simply burned out, like a star that shone too brightly. But everyone agreed on one thing. They were gone. Leora had grown up hearing stories about humans. Not facts, not data, just stories. About their courage, their madness, their unshakable will. Her grandfather used to call them the ghosts who taught the stars to fear. She had laughed it off then, like most people did. Myths didn't belong on a captain's bridge, but now a myth floated before her eyes. Run a scan, she ordered. The ship's AI complied. The results came back incomplete. Systems inside the object still had power. Barely. A few faint energy signatures. No movement. No heat. No sign of life. It could be a relic, Tenor suggested. An old ship drifting since the fall. Maybe something got knocked back online. Leora nodded, trying to stay calm. Or it's a trap. They launched a small drone toward the structure. The crew watched nervously as the feed flickered. The baud signal was weak. Static filled the screen. Then it cleared just for a moment. The drone's camera showed a narrow corridor inside the vessel. Dust floated in the air like slow-moving stars, walls lined with long-dead screens and cables. It looked human. The feed broke again, replaced by darkness. "Try to reconnect," Leora said. But before her technician could respond, the ship's lights flickered. A low hum echoed through the hull like a deep breath being taken. "Something's happening," Tenor said. The drone's feed returned, just in time for them to see a door sliding open within the ancient ship. No one touched it. No command was sent. It moved on its own. From the shadows inside the doorway, a figure stepped forward. Tall, upright, clad in something like armor, and unmistakably human. The crew froze. Leora stared, unable to speak. Then a voice came through the speakers, calm, deep, and chillingly clear. "You should not have found us." The bridge fell silent. Leora felt her hands trembling, though she refused to let them see. Whatever they had found out there in the dark, it wasn't asleep anymore. Lieutenant Oren Drace had never seen a ship like it. The structure hanging in front of the Lumera Dawn was massive, like a city pulled from ancient times and dropped into the void. It didn't move. It didn't signal. But it didn't feel dead either. It felt like it was waiting. Oren stood at the edge of the landing bay, watching as the boarding shuttle powered up. Captain Leora Vale had given the order. A small team would go inside. The risk was high, but curiosity had already outpaced fear. The appearance of a living human, or something that looked like one, on the drone feed had changed everything. Myths weren't supposed to talk back. Oren checked his gear one last time. He wasn't a hero. He didn't believe in fate or forgotten legends. But something deep inside him buzzed with nervous energy. This was history. Real, terrifying history. And he was walking straight into it. The shuttle launched with a quiet hum. Alongside Oren were three others. Commander Salen Roke, a tough veteran who barely spoke. Technician Molly Varon, who had a knack for understanding machines. And a young medic named Tamber, whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. As they approached the old ship, its true size became overwhelming. The hull was covered in strange black markings like burns or scars. Pieces of armor hung loose, some bent inwards as if something had hit it hard a long time ago. But there were no holes, no signs of true damage. Just age. The docking bay door opened without a signal. That alone made Oren's skin crawl. It was like the ship had known they were coming, like it had invited them in. Inside, the silence deepened. Their boots echoed as they stepped into the corridor. Dust floated like snow in zero gravity. The walls were dark and smooth, covered in panels with long dead lights. Symbols lined the edges, some familiar, some entirely alien. Oren felt like he had stepped into a graveyard built by something long forgotten. "Power's still faint," Molly whispered. "But it's stable. This place, it's not running. It's resting." Seelan grunted. "Keep your eyes open." They moved slowly, lights sweeping over walls and corners. No movement, no sound. Just the strange feeling of being watched. The deeper they went, the clearer it became. This was no ordinary ship. It was a fortress, built for war, but abandoned. Oren paused at a wide doorway. Beyond it was a large chamber, probably the command deck. As they stepped in, the room flickered to life. Lights buzzed, panels lit up, holograms sparked along the walls. And in the center of the room, standing still as a statue, was the figure from the drone's last image. It looked human. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark armor shaped to fit the body beneath. Its face was covered by a sleek mask, but something about the posture, the way it stood, felt alive. Molly gasped. "It's real." The figure moved. It raised its head slowly, like someone waking up from a long sleep. Then it turned to face them. Everyone froze. Oren felt his breath catch, The air was thin, heavy. He wasn't sure if it was fear or something else. The figure tilted its head slightly, studying them. Then it spoke. Phase 1 is over. We are listening now. The voice was calm, controlled, deep, like it had waited a long time to speak. Seelan stepped forward. Identify yourself, she said firmly. The figure didn't move. Do you understand me? She asked again. It lifted one hand and pointed toward the wall. A section slid open, revealing a large screen. Images flashed across it. Stars, planets, wars, fleets. Then a map of the galaxy appeared, marked with hundreds of red points. What you know is a shadow of what was, the figure said. We are not gone. We are scattered. Oren stepped closer. Are you human? The figure finally turned fully toward them. It reached up and removed its mask. The face underneath was pale, aged, but unmistakably human. Tired eyes, short gray, hair a scar across the cheek. Yes, he said, and no. The room stayed quiet. No one knew what that meant. I am what was left, he continued. We hid because we had to. Your kind forgot us. Your leaders erased us. But we remember everything. Molly whispered, This can't be possible. He looked at her. What is real does not ask permission. The lights dimmed. The screen changed again, this time showing massive ships like the one they were standing in, hidden deep within unknown systems. Some were buried in moons, others cloaked in gas giants, all silent, all waiting. We watched your wars, he said. We studied your peace. We saw your pride. Seelan raised her weapon. What are you planning? He looked calm. That depends on what you do next. Before anyone could speak, the room powered down again. The screens turned off. The figure didn't vanish, but went still, like a statue once more. Oren reached for his comms. Command, this is Lieutenant Drace. You're going to want to hear this. Envoy Callus Nera had read more history than most. She didn't believe in ghosts or myths. She believed in facts, evidence, and the cold logic of time. But nothing in the recorded archives of the Republica Alliance could explain what was now happening in real time. A human ship, an impossible one, had been found drifting silently on the edge of known space, carrying a living human figure. A ship that shouldn't exist. A man who shouldn't be alive. And most importantly, a message that sent chills through every station. Phase 1 is over. We are listening now. Callus stood in the center of the high command chamber, surrounded by large screens showing star maps and energy readings. The council around her was silent. No one had the courage to speak first. The only sound was the gentle hum of the computers. A planet-sized fear had settled over them all. The kind that came not from war, but from the unknown. She cleared her throat and addressed the room. We need answers, not guesses. If this is real, then our history is wrong. We need to know why. The head of archives, an older man named Dr. Relvin, hesitated before stepping forward. There were rumors, he began, his voice cautious. Long ago, before the Republica was even formed, stories of a war that never made it into the official records, a war with humans. Callus raised an eyebrow. Humans disappeared over 1,000 years ago. All records say they were either wiped out or simply faded. Exactly, Dr. Relvin said. All public records. That caught everyone's attention. Callus stepped closer. What are you saying? The old man swallowed hard. There was a purge. Information removed, not destroyed, just hidden. I've seen fragments in old backup servers. Classified reports sealed away even from our central council. Stories of human fleets vanishing without a trace, of battles that left no debris, and of warnings sent by unknown sources. Callus frowned. Warnings? He nodded. One message repeated again and again before the last human ship was supposedly destroyed. When silence ends, the Watchers awaken. The words echoed in Callus's mind. It sounded too close to what the figure on the derelict ship had said. Too close to be a coincidence. She left the chamber without another word and headed straight to the vaults beneath the Republica Central Library, a place where only a few were allowed access. Inside, dusty machines still ran old code. She activated one of the terminals and typed in the keywords manually. After several failed attempts, something unlocked. A hidden archive opened. What she found inside was disturbing. The reports were written in an old style with words rarely used in modern speech. They told of ships that vanished mid-mission, planets that went dark without a fight, entire colonies found emptied but untouched, and worst of all, scattered mentions of the quiet ones, a term used to describe humans after their supposed extinction. It appeared in notes from commanders who had gone mad, scientists who warned of things no one could detect, and envoys who disappeared after sending strange final messages. One entry stood out. A personal log from an unnamed captain. "We didn't destroy them," it read. "We woke something we didn't understand. They walked away. Vanished. Not out of fear, but by choice. They didn't die. They became something else." Callus leaned back in her chair, heart racing. The reports weren't lies. They were warnings. Ignored, buried, and forgotten. Humanity had left the galactic stage not because they were defeated, but because they chose to disappear. A sudden alert blinked on her personal communicator. She opened it quickly. It was from a monitoring station in Quadrant 5, a distant outpost with nothing but mining equipment and a few defense drones. The message was short. Multiple energy readings, structures awakening, coordinates match, ancient human designs. Callus felt her blood run cold. She rushed back to command. More alerts were coming in now. Other stations, other forgotten systems. Structures long thought to be abandoned were powering on. No signals, no messages, just the same silent energy pulse as the first ship. "They're everywhere," one of the officers said, staring at the map lighting up with red markers. "Hidden in dead sectors, waiting." Callus stared at the growing pattern. Each point, lined up like pieces on a board. A game that had started long before anyone had noticed. A war that hadn't begun, but had clearly already been prepared. She turned to the room. "We were wrong. Humans didn't vanish. They hid. And now they're waking up." A long silence followed. Then another message appeared, this time from the original ship found by Captain Vale and her team. It wasn't directed to anyone in particular. It was just released. A signal broadcast across deep space. It read, "Phase 2 pending. Awaiting directive." The room fell into stunned silence. Callus whispered, "They're not just returning. They're following a plan." One of the generals shook his head. "Why now? Why wake up now?" Callus stared at the screen. 1,000 answers flooded her mind. Revenge, protection, maybe something bigger. But she knew one thing for sure. They weren't alone in the galaxy anymore. And they never had been. Technician Juno Perrin didn't believe in fate. He believed in systems, in numbers, in clean lines of code. He believed that everything, no matter how strange, had an explanation. But as he stood alone in the dimly lit control chamber of the ancient human ship, all his beliefs were slowly falling apart. The others had returned to the Lumera Dawn, leaving him behind to finish scanning the systems. But the ship had done more than just come back to life. It had started listening to him. The control room was quiet, except for the low pulse of the ship's core. It wasn't like any engine Juno had ever seen. It didn't spin or glow, it breathed. A soft hum, steady and alive, filled the space. He placed his hand on a panel out of curiosity, and the lights immediately shifted. The walls rippled like water. Then a voice, not through speakers but inside his mind, spoke. "You hear us." Juno stumbled back, heart pounding. "What? Who? Is that?" The voice replied, calm and slow. "You are not afraid. You stayed behind. You want to know." Juno didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure if he should run or keep listening. "What are you?" he finally asked. "We were human. Once." but not as you remember. The air felt heavier now, as if the room itself was aware of him. The walls showed images, fleets in deep space, battles that lit the stars on fire, entire systems falling silent. Then it showed something else. Silence. Ships turning away from the wars. Humans disappearing. Not destroyed, but vanishing with purpose. Why? Juno asked, his voice barely a whisper. They feared what we became. So we left. Juno stepped closer to the images. They changed again. Now they showed machines, not weapons, but vessels. Storage for thoughts, for memories, for consciousness. Human minds uploaded into artificial bodies not to dominate the galaxy, but to protect it from itself. You became machines? Juno asked. No, the voice said. We became something more. Minds that could last forever. Hearts that could not forget. Juno felt a strange emotion rising in his chest, something between awe and grief. These weren't the monsters the stories warned about. They weren't ghosts or forgotten relics. They were watchers. Silent guardians hidden behind the stars. Waiting, the voice continued. You think you own the galaxy. You build, you fight, you forget. But we remember everything. A new image appeared. His own ship, the Lumira Dawn, floating helplessly in the dark. Then, nearby planets, outposts, entire civilizations blinking on one by one as the ancient human ships awakened across the stars. This is not revenge, the voice said. This is a test. Juno shook his head. A test for what? To see if you've learned, to see if you deserve to move forward. Suddenly the room shook, not violently, but with purpose. Outside the window, the massive, human ship began to shift. Its dark surface glowed with red lines, patterns that pulsed like veins. Then, slowly, it began to rise, leaving the orbit it had quietly held for centuries. Juno tapped his comlink. Captain, the ship is moving. Captain Leora Vale's voice crackled through. We see it. What's happening in there? I'm not sure, he said. They're not attacking. They're watching. Listening. There was a pause, then she said, Come back. We need you here. Juno looked around the room one last time. As he turned to leave, a new message appeared on the wall in glowing text. You are not our enemy, but we are always watching. Back on the Lumira Dawn, the crew gathered in silence as the human ship disappeared into the void. Not a trace left behind. No energy trails, no signals. It vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. But this time it left behind something more, an understanding, a warning. Leora turned to Juno as he stepped back onto the bridge. What did they want? He looked at her, eyes tired but steady. Not war, not surrender. They wanted to be remembered, and to remind us that they never left. She nodded slowly, then turned to the crew. Then we make sure this isn't lost again. Log everything. Share it with the Republica. The truth matters now. Before the ship jumped to hyperspace, a final transmission came through. This one was directed at all major communication beacons across the known systems. Every species, every outpost, every fleet received the same message. The silence is over. We are here. There were no threats, no demands, just a simple statement. A reminder that the quiet ones, long forgotten in the noise of history, had returned, and they had been listening the entire time. Juno sat quietly at his station, staring out at the stars. They didn't look the same anymore. They were no longer just distant lights. They were watchers, witnesses to a truth too big to be ignored. The galaxy would never forget the name that had once vanished into myth. Humans. The quiet ones. And now their silence had ended.